Welcome once again to Come Alive. I'm your host, Reverend Joshua. This week we've been looking at how to love and to love God. And remember, when Jesus was asked these questions, he summarized how to fulfill the entire law and the prophets. And he says, actually in verse number 40, on these two commandments depends all the law and the prophets. And in his answering, he says, you get to love God, vertically, your devotion towards him, and you give your all, and then he goes horizontal, he says, your neighbor, and that's what you're looking at today. He says on the second is like it, verse 39, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. In other words, between the two commandments, they are alike, they are similar. The second one, loving your neighbor as you love yourself, is similar to the first commandment, where he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. So there is no way of comparing or being able to distinguish these two. The way you love God is the same way Jesus says you need to love and to devote to love your neighbor. Now, who is your neighbor? Your neighbor is anyone who you get to associate with, someone you come along. It doesn't have to be someone of your tribe. It doesn't have to be someone of your nation. But it's people who live next to you or people who you encounter every other day. And Jesus gives a parable of the Good Samaritans. And he says the Samaritan who was able to take care of the man who was beaten down, then he was the good neighbor when the rest of them walked around and did not help the one who was in need. And Jesus says, love your neighbor as yourself. There are many lessons I can derive and I can be able to pick out of this scripture. For one, the way you love yourself is the way you ought to love your neighbor. But let me say one thing first, that you cannot be able to love someone else if you do not know how to love yourself. And there are many people who don't know how to love themselves. And yet, there are people who love themselves. Life revolves all around them, that they don't know how to give the same devotion to people who are next to them. What kind of a person are you? Are you the one who neglects yourself? Then you need to learn how to love yourself, because if you don't know how to love yourself, there's no you can be able to love someone else. And if you're the kind of a person where life revolves around you, everyone must project their energy towards you. It's all about you. You absorb everything. Then you need to change yourself and reflect the same devotion that you love yourself with to the people who are next to you. You see, when Jesus says the second one is like the first one, one thing I know, when it comes to loving yourself, you don't love yourself halfway. When you love yourself with all your soul, you love yourself with all your heart, you love yourself with all your mind. That's where you wake up on Monday morning and you hustle throughout the week because you want some money chums so that you can take care of yourself. Rarely do we work hard for other things and other reasons. The motivation of doing that is so that you can take care of, you can live a comfortable life. You love yourself. When the people love themselves to this aspect, that if someone do not respond to you the way you desire, and you feel emotionally wounded, he doesn't like me. Did you see how he looked at me? You don't respect me. We use all those words. What are you trying to say? That you feel like other people are not giving you the love that you think they need to give you. Love yourself as you love your neighbor. And the same devotion you give to yourself, Jesus is saying, give your neighbors equal devotion. Our society today is a very individualistic society. I sit in a matatu and you go all the way to town and you don't even know your neighbor. If they ask you a question, they're like, you're bothering you. Can you stay to your lane? That's the society you're living in. When I don't know you, do not bother me. Live your life, leave me alone. individualistic. That's why we are cocooning ourselves. That's the reason why we are barricading ourselves in our homesteads. No, you live your life. Let me do me. You do you. I do me. And it is in the same devotion that we give to God, loving God, that when we give it to our neighbors as believers, as the people of God, that actually we channel God's love to them, and they feel we become to them the only way they can come close to God and actually be able to feel and be able to access God's love. Because you become the arms, you become the extension of God's love through you. So how do you love your neighbors? Would you give up your comfort so that your neighbor who is lacking can enjoy the same comfort that you enjoy? You see, it is not just about saying I love you, you're a good person and all those. It is going an extra mile and looking for their well-being the same way you look for your own well-being. If my neighbor can be my wife, or can be your husband, can be your children, do you love them the same way you love you yourself? The neighbor can be your colleague at work, can be your family member, can be people you encounter every day. At the supermarket, when you're walking around, that's a neighbor. Those are all neighbors around you. Do you walk around with desire to be able to love others, to be able to do good to them, to be able to share with them what you would want them to do? In other words, and the scripture says, do unto others as you'd like them to do unto you. And that's the golden rule. When it comes to your neighbor, how would you want them to treat you? Then treat them that way. God bless you. See you next time for Come Alive.